Everybody, welcome to week 13. We are in the process of wrapping up our problem solution essay project. This week you will be completing your final revised essay and submitting those in Blackboard, and you'll also start working on the slideshow presentation, which is the last piece of the project. So let me share my screen and I'll just briefly go over the agenda for the week, as well as point out some documents, some online resources that I have available to you to assist. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through your feedback that I gave you on your first drafts, and also look at the peer feedback that you received from one of your classmates. Both of those, and again, I should say, the peer feedback was excellent. So I hope you found it helpful. And both of these areas of feedback give you some suggestions for how to revise your final essay. So you should review the Little Seagull Handbook, the writing process sections, it's W4, on how to revise. You want to do it globally, look at the big picture, but then also look at the details as you go through your essay. So these should be substantial revisions. Looking ahead also this week, you want to add multimodal components. So what that means is it could be an image, it could be a link to a video, it could be an embedded video, it could be hyperlinks to websites. So there's all sorts of examples in the Little Seagull Designing What You Write section. I've also added a couple of guides, because the Little Seagull doesn't go into too much detail in the nuts and bolts of how to actually do the adding multimodal components. So I have some links for adding images and captions in Google Docs, as well as OneDrive Word docs. But for the most part, you can find anything you're looking for in YouTube. If those don't help you, hopefully you can get your answers on YouTube. So you're going to go through revising your essay, follow the step-by-step guide that I've linked here and explains what you need for each of those pieces. You can also take a look at my sample final essay. So I've linked it here, and I just want to briefly show you. So in the final essay, I highlighted the changes that I made compared to my first draft. You don't have to make highlights. I'm just doing this so that you can see what I've done. So anything in yellow, I make a comment saying what I added. I also added hyperlinks. So if you're looking to add a hyperlink, what you need to do is just highlight the text with your cursor, and then you would click Insert, and then scroll down to where it says Link, and then you would just paste the link that you want to have in your document there. So one word of caution is I don't want you to hyperlink citations. So for example, here is an MLA citation showing what the source is. You don't want to put a hyperlink with that. But instead, what I did was, if there is information that a reader might want to explore further, like the Connecticut Food Share Mobile Food Pantry, instead of me explaining what that's all about in my essay, I just included a hyperlink. So as you can see, that goes, well, it goes to the Connecticut Food Bank. For some reason, we're having problems with that link there, but it goes to the Connecticut Food Bank Food Share Mobile Pantry. And you can say I've also hyperlinked the word food insecurity. Maybe this one will work. Yeah, so this from Feeding America explains what food insecurity is. So things like that you can include as a multimodal component. You need a minimum of 2 images. So here is an image that I copied a screenshot of from a source. It's of a chart. And then I did this other image that looks like a little puzzle showing how all these pieces, these individual causes are connected. But for each one, I created a caption, I identified the source, and then I listed the source on my works cited page. So just scrolling through again here, you can see the changes that I made, anything in yellow. I added transitions, I added sentences connecting back to my thesis. So you can see these are areas that were most commonly that I made suggestions on for student writing, is adding transitions to connect ideas, adding topic sentences for cohesion, things like that, adding concrete evidence. And here I added information about the opposing viewpoint. And then I revised my conclusion to make it stronger. So after the essay, the works cited list. So you want to do a hanging indent. So that is like this. So the top line lines up at 0, and then the bottom lines up at 0.5. So it indents automatically. This is what you want a hanging indent to look like in your essay. You want it double spaced. You want a space between each source, and you want to include the direct hyperlink in each source. These are some areas that I found myself making comments on for almost everybody's works cited page. So review my list to see how it should look. Make sure to put them in alphabetical order. Make sure to add the author if your source has an author. So if you create a citation in Zotero Bib, you have to check to make sure it's accurate. So check your source. If there's an author, you need to manually add the author. Sometimes you might need to manually add the publication date. So remember, you need a minimum of 6 sources, one of which is going to be that from the They Say, I Say list. So all those need to be on here. And I added a couple of new sources too. So at the end of after your works cited list, then you're going to have your self-assessment. This should be 1 page long, and there are specific questions that I ask you to answer that are different from the first draft. So make sure to revise your self-assessment. This counts as, I think it's 5 points out of your 20-point total for your final essay. So make sure to take some time to really think about that revision process. And then add your outline. If you revised it, include your revised outline. So that's what your final essay should look like. And here's just a reminder on the agenda for some common errors that to look at. Have an opening hook that's catchy, grabs the reader's attention, lead into a strong thesis statement, add topic sentences and transitions to connect ideas, fix any in-text citations that are inaccurate or punctuation. Again, clean up the works cited page and then revise the outline and self-assessment. So that's what you need to do for your homework this week. But then looking ahead, you can start thinking about next week's piece of the assignment, which is the slideshow presentation. So I've linked a sample slideshow. I'm not going to go through it here. I did a really basic Google slideshow. I used a template. So it doesn't have to be fancy, but you want to follow some of the guidelines that are from the Little Seagull Designing What You Write. So make sure to refer to that section again. So you can start working on that this week. As I said, it's not due until next week. So I have a sample presentation that I shared there, so you can take a look at it. So just as a reminder, there is no quiz this week and no blog due this week. So that's a little bit of a bonus so that you can spend that time instead working on your final essay and making sure it's as good as you can get it. So the final essay is due Friday at midnight, and your slideshow presentation, like I said, is due next Friday. All right, so that's everything you'll need to be working on this week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, send me an email, and I will do my best to help you out. Have a great week, and I will be checking your final essays. Bye for now.